celebrates a soft landing, the Fed's Powell is worrying. President Joe Biden is touring the nation to promote the economy's resiliency and its incredibly vibrant job market. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is conveying a totally different message. If the economy continues to grow quickly, the central bank will probably apply more force to the brakes in an effort to stifle inflation. The legacy of both men will depend on how the economy responds to the Fed's highest interest rates in 15 years. When the Labor Department releases the Consumer Price Index for January on Tuesday, it is anticipated to reveal that inflation declined for the 7th straight month, providing more clarity on the way forward. An optimistic trend was shown throughout the second half of 2022, when it ran at an annualized pace under 3%. There is greater optimism now than there has been in almost a year that the economy can slow along with inflation without a harsh recession, a so-called soft landing thanks to job growth that is booming and wage hikes that are leveling off. However, prices still increased more quickly in 2017 than they had in the previous 4 decades, and Powell has pledged to take whatever steps are necessary to keep borrowing costs high and stop price increases from becoming a more pervasive aspect of the economy. Tobin Marcus, a senior policy and politics strategist at Evercore IC and a former economic advisor to Vice President Biden, said, "We're in an economy right now that definitely has some bright areas and darker spots with inflation still in the process of coming down." Powell still needs to maintain some focus on the necessity of finishing the job, although the president is more interested in highlighting the positives for very obvious reasons. So why does the central bank feel the need to continually warn that it's ready to continue raising interest rates and risking a recession when inflation is running close to the Fed's 2% goal rate even during a hot labor market? There is a lot of history behind inflation, which is a tricky creature. Here are 5 important queries regarding the state of consumer prices, the economy's potential future, Biden, and Powell. Here are 5 important queries regarding the state of consumer prices, the economy's potential future, Biden, and Powell. You claim that there is a labor shortage. Why do I keep reading that a recession could be coming? According to a recent Labor Department report, unemployment dropped to 3.4%, the lowest level since 1969. Only during the Korean War has it ever been lower in contemporary American history. For Biden, who has bragged about his track record on jobs in both his yearly State of the Union speech and on the campaign trail since then, it's the perfect talking point. Powell, though, is wary of low unemployment because he fears that it could cause salaries to soar, driving up labor costs for businesses and consequently prices, a phenomenon known as the wage price spiral. The job market is a crucial indicator of where prices may be headed, but inflation is what matters most to the Fed. Demand for goods and services is what generates employment and provides consumers with money to spend. That instance, a robust employment market indicates that customers and businesses will be able to withstand price increases. In essence, the Fed is prepared to take on a recession in order to prevent what occurred in the 1970s, when the central bank scaled back interest rate increases and inflation periodically returned with a vengeance. The basic premise of the argument is that we can manage recessions. Inflation control is more difficult. In light of the fact that you may always adjust your strategy and lower your borrowing expenses, it is advisable to err on the side of caution. In essence, the Fed is prepared to take on a recession in order to prevent what occurred in the 1970s, when the central bank scaled back interest rate increases and inflation periodically returned with a vengeance. The basic premise of the argument is that we can manage recessions. Inflation control is more difficult. In light of the fact that you may always adjust your strategy and lower your borrowing expenses, it is advisable to err on the side of caution. Is it really necessary for the Fed to harm the labor market in order to reduce inflation? The trillion-dollar question is that. Many experts would disagree, citing peculiar variables that have contributed to this spell of inflation and cannot be resolved by raising interest rates, including as supply constraints, government expenditures, and Russia's conflict in Ukraine. The fading of such transient elements is undoubtedly a significant contributor to the inflationary slowdown. The Fed will want to raise rates further, or perhaps just keep them at punishing levels for longer, if inflation doesn't continue on its downward trajectory, until they observe what they refer to as a softening in the labor market, which includes fewer job openings, slower wage growth, and, most likely, slightly higher unemployment. What You said that the rate of inflation has been somewhat more than 2% for the past 6 months. Isn't that the goal of the Federal Reserve? Are they nearly finished? Although the Fed's target inflation rate is 2%, they are not yet there. Gas prices, which are erratic and influenced by global events, are a major factor in why price spikes have decreased so much. Powell and his colleagues policymakers want to ensure that there is a general decline in inflation. While the cost of items like furniture and automobiles has decreased, the rise in rent rates may be moderating. However, the Fed continues to be concerned about rising prices in core service industries, where labor expenses are a significant expense. Consider the restaurant, transportation, and healthcare industries. Prices there have increased 4.7% during the past 6 months. Thus, wages play a role in this. Are earnings increasing at a quicker rate over time? No, wage growth is not speeding up. However, according to Fed officials and other economists, the rate of increase in worker pay, which was roughly 5% in 2022, compared to a CPI increase of 6.5%, is still too high for inflation to sustainably drop to 2%. For example, before the epidemic, when inflation was just around 2%, earnings were increasing by roughly 3.5% annually. The Fed doesn't need to be overly concerned, according to one theory, because workers won't want as large raises once price hikes are better under control and wages are just rebounding after being severely hit by inflation. But because the unemployment rate is so low, the Fed is concerned that a lack of workers would cause this trend to change. They would like to see fewer job vacancies, at the absolute least. All of this doesn't seem to be good news for anyone hoping to be re-elected in 2024. Yes, the head of the Fed has warned that as borrowing costs continue to climb in an effort to curb expenditure, unemployment may increase by 1 or more percentage points. Recent days have brought the contradiction between the economy's current state and its potential future into glaring relief. Biden and Powell both want to reduce inflation, but the Fed is likely to undercut one of the president's main selling arguments going into 2024. According to Jason Furman, the former chief economist for President Barack Obama, I think both Biden and Powell would order the same items off the menu. However, they believe that the menu is significantly different, with Powell being far less positive that the soft landing is on it than POTUS is. That's today's latest news. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment so that this channel can continue to exist. Thank you for listening to the end and I hope it's useful.